Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. My ex and I recently got divorced. He cheated on me with his ex from high school and got mad that I wasn't ready to give him a chance unless we tried marriage counseling. He didn't want that, and I didn't want him. So we divorced. Our divorce wasn't an easy process either. After about 8 years of marriage and a lot of shared possessions that my husband didn't want to settle on, our divorce dragged into the court for months. He did this because after being dumped by his affair partner and being disowned by his parents, he thought dragging this divorce as long as possible would somehow get me to love him again. Needless to say, that didn't work out, but caused me to resist as much as he was. Money wasn't an issue for me, but my ex was. It was like at that point, I could do anything I possibly could to have him suffer. So, after about a year in court and a lot of money spent on lawyers, our divorce was finally finalized. I also got the house after it was proven that my husband's claims about me cheating were false. So, it's needless to say, it feels blissful to not live with a man as difficult as him. I mean, I won't deny our marriage and relationship was pretty darn amazing. We had great chemistry, which is why whatever happened took me by shock. Well, during the process of divorce, to be specific, towards the end of our divorce, I met this guy named Noah. We met at the yoga class I joined to get over the stress from the divorce, and he was surprisingly there for the same reason after he and his wife had separated. So we started talking, became friends, and have been dating for around 6 months now. It feels good to be back in the dating scene, and dating a man as stable as Noah is definitely new for me. So Noah and my relationship goes on this way, and we go out together a lot. So just last week, Noah and I were both at the mall hanging out after watching a movie. We then stumbled across this cute indie jewelry shop, and I decide that I want to go take a look. So I walk inside and start looking at their pieces. I'm in awe, and I guess looking at my bracelet and necklace set, the owner of the shop is in awe as well. She inquires about them, and I proudly tell her that they were passed down to me from my grandma, who had received this piece from her grandma. They're made of real diamonds and gold. I knew I went a little overboard with the flexing, but I was genuinely so proud of them. So I don't mind when she asked me if she could run a little diamond test on them. After I say yes, she pulls out this little device and presses it on the bracelet. I was shocked as she very awkwardly tells me that it says that it's fake. My jaw dropped there and then. I told her it wasn't possible as I've gotten one of those tests done before. She tells me that she would run the device once again, and when it says the same thing again, I have no choice but to awkwardly walk out the store with Noah. Well, this starts my investigation on where the original bracelet and necklace must have gone. I think about this day and night, asking my mom and discussing it with Noah. It was like I could recall all the times I ever wore it, but there was something missing. Well, this missing part came walking to me by itself just the day before yesterday when I was at the supermarket. So I'm done buying all the weekly groceries and paying for them. I walk out and I see my ex sister in law standing outside. Oh boy, I would be lying if I said I wanted to avoid her, but couldn't deny an awkward conversation when she approached me, and that is when I saw it. The same bracelet. The one my grandma owned and was passed down from generation to generation on this woman's wrist. I immediately ask her where she brought it from, and she starts flexing about how it's real diamond and yada yada. I was agitated at that point because I just wanted an answer to my question, and when I received it, I was dumbfounded. She said my ex husband, that is, her brother, had gotten it for her from a vintage jewelry auction for her birthday. I was enraged. I simply just thanked her and I ran, not walked, to his house. After reaching there, he was shocked to see me there, but invited me in. I immediately confronted him about the bracelet and asked him what the whole ordeal was. The change in his facial expression immediately tells me what is up, and I get the answers that I want. I told him to be ready to hear from the lawyers once again because I was going to sue. He tried his best by using all the excuses in the book, every stupid thing he can possibly say, but I'm not having it. I just left because I have no energy to deal with his BS. So here is where I am currently. I went home and immediately took all the jewelry gifted to me by my grandma to the jewelers and was mortified to find out that most of them were flipped by my ex-husband. I have already spoken to my lawyers, and they are ready to file a court case after reviewing everything. According to them, my ex husband can receive a punishment as harsh as jail time, and this is where I feel conflicted. I know if I talk to him, he will pay me back or return me the jewelry immediately. I don't know if suing him and technically ruining his life would be worth it. So, WIBTA, if I sue my ex husband and have him serve jail time because he stole the jewelry passed down to me from my grandma? After reading all the comments and talking to Noah, I'm convinced that I need to sue and get my valuables returned to me. So, after about a week's worth of discussions with the lawyers, they suggested I try and recall where I think my ex husband might have gotten the jewelry we made into fake versions from, because then it would be much easier for them to present evidence in court. So, after much thinking, I was able to recall the time I had given my ex husband my bracelet to get it resized from this vintage jewelry shop that I frequented. I would give them all the pieces of jewelry my grandma passed down to me for maintenance, and they always did a great job on them. But I also knew they worked on remodeling old pieces of jewelry into fake versions for people who didn't want to wear precious and original pieces of jewelry outside. But I also knew that they required to see receipts of ownership, so it wouldn't make sense how my ex husband could prove my ownership to my bracelets. Only I knew the ownership proof of them was in the will that my grandma had made before her passing away. Well, regardless, I have given this information to my lawyers. Let's see what they do with it. I will most likely update you all once the results of the court case come out altogether. Hi everyone. 6 months ago, I posted on this subreddit asking for advice regarding my husband stealing my jewelry and remaking fake versions of them and gifting his sister the original one. Well, the lawsuit began, and it was obvious from the get go that my ex husband was going to lose terribly. The proof against him was just way too strong for him to not face at least 3 years in prison, plus fines, and him having to return all the jewelry he stole from me. He too knew this, but didn't want to give up. I guess his lawyers gave him some sort of false hope that there was a way out from this situation when the both of us just knew there is never a way out from theft. But, anyways, the case starts and immediately they provide horrible evidence trying to showcasing how my ex-husband hasn't stolen the jewelry. They do everything in their power to show that it was me who gave it to him. But with the lack of evidence, no one was convinced with this angle that my ex-husband's lawyer tried to create. Well, then it came time for my lawyers to show our side of the events. And they did an amazing job dragging my husband through the mud. They also brought in the vintage jewelry shop owner who confessed that my husband indeed had brought my jewelry to them to get fake versions of them made. This had already raised suspicions enough towards my husband that I think, with the lack of evidence coming from their end, it would have still proven my ex husband guilty. Well, then I was shocked that my ex sister in law walked in the courtroom to testify against him. The look on his face when he saw his own sister there told me that he had given up. So we got the opportunity to hear my sister in law very nicely vent about how my ex husband had told her about this non existent vintage jewelry auction where he got her the bracelet. When my ex husband was questioned about this, I was surprised that he had even prepared to give a fake name for an auction that never existed. Needless to say, this simply did not work for him and just made his case worse. 6 months passed with this back and forth before I assume my ex husband quite literally got frustrated with himself and just decided to plead guilty. He was put in jail for 3 years, along with receiving multiple fines. I also received most of my jewelry back except for a small ring that he apparently sold. Well, although that was heartbreaking to find, it was better to know that he at least had most of my things, not with himself, but with others. He apparently just thought that it would be a good idea to give these pieces to multiple people as a present on small occasions. I think even he didn't realize the worth behind these pieces went way beyond sentimental value, and it is expected from a man as cheap minded as him. My ex sister in law and some of the other people who had these jewelry with them personally reached out to me to apologize on my ex husband's behalf. It was very sweet of them, and it honestly felt really nice. NTA, go get your jewelry back, girl. If you feel empathetic towards this man even after he did you so wrong, you're just plain wrong. NTA, but I wouldn't feel even an inch of consideration towards this man after all that he's done to you. I'm not even sure what went through his head as he went through all this trouble to make not only his but your life miserable. Just sue him and get your stuff back, OP. If it weren't for you after seeing his behavior, I feel like he would be in jail regardless for one reason or another. Background information. I am a 15-year-old female and I have a twin sister, 15. Our personalities are very different. I'm an introvert and really shy, and my sister has this bubbly personality, an extrovert. We have an okay bond, I guess. My mother always blames everything on my shyness and that it's ruining my whole life. She also calls me lazy like my dad because I don't have the personality from her Russian family side. My father is very calm, but he isn't lazy at all. However, my mother thinks calm equals lazy. I'm definitely not lazy either. I have good grades, high level gymnast, and I also help my father a lot around the house. A lot more than my mother and my siblings, but she always denies that. My sister gets above average grades. She's also really talented, is good at ice skating, and is stronger than me. AITA situation. Yesterday evening, my aunt, 64, female, and uncle, 50, male, came over. They are pretty distant family. It went well, and I was having a good time until my uncle asked, "Since you're 15 now, do you have a job?" My mom spoke before me and said, "No, of course not. OP is so lazy. Her sister luckily got my motivation and isn't lazy." I got really mad. I told my mom how I am smarter and more athletic. I take more sports than my sister. This was the first time I put my sister down. She, however, commented, "I am already searching for a job, unlike OP, who will always be shy and miserable." I just ignored her because I had to give the guests some drinks. When I came back with the drinks, my mom went on about how my sister helps her so much and is such a good daughter and babysitter. I went to my room at that point, leaving the guests unattended because my sister didn't want to do anything and my mom forced her, though. I just cried in my room, and maybe I overreacted, but I was just so done with my mother's treatment and her just brushing it off as me being oversensitive. After 40 minutes, I went back to have a good time with my family, even though I was still really mad. My mom asked in Russian, her native language, if I wanted to make her some tea. I told her in the language everyone understands that since my sister is so good at helping her, my sister can do it because I'm not doing it. She got mad and forced me to make her tea, which I eventually did. After the guests left, she got mad at me for embarrassing her, leaving the guests unattended, and that I am only thinking about myself. I told her that I am not going to help her until she starts appreciating my help because I do a lot. 2 to 3 hours a day in vacation for only chores. I am here because I want to make sure whether I am or am not the a-hole. NTA, it sounds like you're the family's scapegoat. Maybe to show how much you really do for chores, go on strike for chores. Your mom obviously won't know because you don't help around the house. NTA, your mother faced the natural consequence for cutting you down. Embarrassment. She should have been embarrassed about her behavior, but that doesn't sound like it's going to happen anytime soon. Removing yourself from an abusive event shows strength. It's important to stop enabling the comparisons between you and your sister, both in your own mind and out loud to others. When you call me names like that, you hurt my feelings. Please stop. All about your reactions here. Also, unless you were physically forced to make tea, you might want to reconsider reinforcing her dominance over you at moments like this. She's your mom, but it's not her right to mistreat you. I'm a 26-year-old male and I married my wife, 26, 6 years ago. After 2 years, we tried for kids but couldn't because of health problems my wife had. After a year of trying and going to different doctors, we decided to adopt. After another year of paperwork and court hearings, we finally got our then 5-year-old son, and he was a blessing. We love him with all our hearts, and he loves us. He immediately started calling us mom and dad. That really made us feel like we were his parents. Now, fast forward to 2 years, and my wife unexpectedly got pregnant. We don't know how it happened. We just thanked God and were overjoyed. I cried and held her for half an hour when she told me. Our now 7-year-old son was also really excited. We threw a small party for just family members and close friends. Everything was going well. Our son was playing with his cousins. After a while, I looked for him because he hadn't eaten his dinner yet. I asked my nephews where he was. They didn't know. I asked my wife to look for him. I wasn't worried or anything. It would just be easier if both of us looked. We found him in his closet crying. We got him out and asked him what's wrong. He kept crying, saying he didn't want us to get angry at him. I told him we could never get angry at him and he could tell us anything. Now, this next part is where I got red hot. This is somewhat how it went. Me, buddy, what happened? Did someone say something? You can tell us. Wife, baby, look at me. What's wrong? Then he hit us with the most heart-wrenching question. I felt like crying right then and there. My son, are you going to stop loving me and throw me out when you get your real baby? The part that hit us most was the real. After all the love we gave him, he started doubting if he was our son. We were shocked. My wife immediately hugged him, saying no. We told him that even after the new baby comes, we would never stop loving him and that he's our son no matter what. We just kept repeating that we loved him. He started crying more and hugged us both. After he calmed down a little, we asked him who told him that. He said, Aunt Bish. I was fuming. We told him to stay in the room. We went to the living room, and there she was, gossiping, living her best life. Not for long, though. I just let loose in front of everyone. I went to her and yelled, Why would you tell our son we would throw him out and not love him anymore after the baby comes? There was a look of horror on her face. My mother-in-law comes and asks, What's wrong? And when we told her what happened, she, Aunt, started crying, saying she didn't mean it that way, and we were obviously going to love our own blood more. That was the last straw for my wife because she went off, saying that she has no right to tell us who we are supposed to love more, and we would love both our children equally. Aunt started saying she was sorry and she didn't know our son would make such a big deal out of it. I was sick of her crap, so I just told her to get the hell out. My father-in-law and mother-in-law agree with what I did, but some family members are calling us saying we should have just talked to her in private. As angry as I was, I feel really crappy now. Thank you all for the kind responses. I felt bad because she was bawling her eyes out when she left, and to have done that to a woman the same age as my mom didn't feel right to me. But after a long talk with my wife, whose exact words were, No bitch talks to my son like that and gets away with it, and reading all the responses, I feel justified in how we handled it. There's a family WhatsApp group on my wife's side with the aunt and a lot of the relatives who said we should have talked to her in private. We messaged in the group this morning telling that we don't regret what we did and aunt should have known better than to tell a 7-year-old kid such a cruel thing. Aunt wanted to apologize to my son in person, but we refused. He doesn't seem to remember what happened, but someone responded that he might, and after seeing how much pain he was in, we don't want to bring up the topic to him again. NTA, and she deserved the public shaming for what she did. Don't let her back around your son. Tell him that some people just have trouble loving others, and you can feel sorry for them, but don't let their view of things poison his own.